Live Zone. Well, at least 6 people died and several others were injured in a shooting attack in Jerusalem this morning. Israeli emergency services said a Spanish national has been confirmed as among those killed. Israeli police said 2 attackers arrived by vehicle. A security officer and a civilian at the scene returned fire, killing the attackers. The shooting is the deadliest attack in the city since 2023, when a Palestinian man opened fire, killing 7 people near a synagogue. Joining us to discuss this and so much more is Mr. Harley Lippman, foreign policy expert, back here on the Live Zone. Harley, always good to see you, sir. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Good to see you as well.
Obviously, our condolences happen to be going out to the families who lost loved ones. As you heard me make mention, Harley, Hamas did not take responsibility for this, but they did welcome the slayings. What gives? In essence, it's as if they did it.
Yeah, I think they're very clever. They're mindful of international attention, and clearly they're don't want to acknowledge that because that can make negotiations more difficult for them. But whether they actually organized it or not, I think this speaks to some of the root causes of the problem in the Middle East, and particularly among Palestinians. And that is their hatred of Jews, their hatred of Israel, to the point that they'll just shoot civilians in a suburb just because they're Jewish or Israeli. And this is tragic on so many levels, but very revealing as to what the goals and the intent are of, the Palestinian community. And it's very sad and frightening.
Yeah, Harley, you heard me make mention they are the shooters, if you will. The attackers happen to be 2 Palestinian nationals. Do we have any additional information about them?
I'm not aware of that. But regardless of what we find out about them, which of course would be interesting, I think that it speaks to a poll that was done after October 7th, where 87% of the Palestinians supported October 7th. And that's a frightening statistic and data point, because we all know on October 7th, what took place was a savage attack on civilians in Israel, the raping of women, the burning of elderly in wheelchairs in front of their families, really just incredibly horrific acts of murder. And this is what is truly genocide. They were trying to kill every single Jewish person they could. Contrary to Israel and Gaza, Israel is not committing genocide, because for it to be genocide, there has to be intent. And Israel's intent is not to slaughter Palestinians, because if there was intent, they would have accomplished it a long time ago.
Harley, we know that the Israeli military is now calling on Gaza City residents to evacuate, including a high-rise that houses a local human rights organization. Now, the military, in essence, stating that they marked buildings that will be attacked due to the presence of Hamas terrorists inside or near those buildings. I'm curious, your take on that, sir?
Well, of course, at first blush, it sounds rather draconian of Israel. They're blowing up the whole building just because maybe one apartment or one area has a Hamas connection. And it feels extreme, and it feels disproportionate. And I can understand that. But at the same time, this is the only way to stop the fighting, is this strategy of trying to, as much as they can, decisively defeat Hamas. And if you do that, you have closure, and nobody dies anymore, no one is killed. Once again, to prove this is not genocide, because Israel's requirements for there to be resolution is the hostages are given up, because these are innocent Israeli civilians who were kidnapped and tortured in these tunnels in Gaza, and for Hamas to disarm. So the war that Israel is fighting is against Hamas. I can't emphasize that in stronger terms. It's not against the Palestinians, because as I mentioned, you would have no more fighting if Hamas surrendered. It would all be over, and no more Palestinians would be killed.
And so with that being said, Harley, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm curious, with that being said, what does total victory look like? In this case, militarily, politically, and diplomatically?
Another great question. And in fairness to the other side, there are people who feel that total victory is an illusion, that Israel cannot achieve it, that you'll always have some guerrilla elements, you'll have some Hamas elements. You're never going to stop it completely. So what is this idea of Israel's total victory? So that's one school of thought. And those who believe that, and that's true for many Israelis, again, like the Vietnam War, a lot of Israelis are demonstrating against the war. They're tired of it, and they feel that it's not worth any more dying of Israeli soldiers or Palestinian civilians for this war to continue, because they feel Israel has largely defeated Hamas already. And for Israel to continue to fight this war only contributes to Israel's isolation in the world, the momentum for a Palestinian state, which would be destructive to everyone, which I could go into later, and it creates more anti-Semitism. But the flip side of that says that if you had a ceasefire now and let's say stop fighting, even if you got the hostages back, what happens tomorrow? And the problem with that is tomorrow you'll still have Hamas. They will regroup, re-energize, rearm, and they've said repeatedly that they'll attack Israel time and time again.
Yeah. We'll end with this, Harley, and that is the role the U.S. should continue to play and or not play. In your mind, has that changed?
No, I think it's quite distinctive and impressive that President Trump is standing behind Israel so much. And I know it looks warlike and violent and terrible suffering on all sides, particularly innocent Palestinians that are dying in this conflict. But I'll end this with the analogy of the United States. If we had Fox or any other network at Gettysburg during the Civil War, I suspect the North would probably say, let the South succeed. Who wants to watch this carnage and this death? 50,000 people died in Gettysburg. When you think how small America was then, it was a catastrophe. It was a slaughter, but it ended slavery. So I think while wars are terrible, in the end, I think the peace that it will bring to the Palestinians and Israelis make this worth it.
Yet again, Mr. Harley Lippman, foreign policy expert, joining us right here on the Live Zone. I truly appreciate your time, Harley.
Thank you.
You bet. All right, folks, we'll take a quick break. On the flip side of that break, let's lighten things up, shall we? In this case, Commanders fans, all smiles. Why? Well, you already know. They beat the Giants yesterday. Tailgate Ted will join us to discuss just that and so much more when we come right back.